there was kind of I guess a hustle mentality that was going on because you had to be working a few jobs to be able to live comfortably. And at that time, I never had the hustle mentality. So I was like, I was thinking, okay, I just want to be able to work one job and be comfortable. It was great. It was great. Trust me, I wouldn't change it for the world. Support is always key. I think in anything, but particularly in residency where it really gets tough, it is key. His words were, if you are going to do geriatrics, do not do it anywhere but Harvard. And I'm thinking, Harvard? How am I get into Harvard? Like, really? If when you look at this paper, when you sit in a corner and that's what you keep envisioning for yourself, go ahead and do it. Do it.
Hello, hello. You're listening to the IMG Residency Match podcast, where ambitious international medical graduates like yourself get the insider strategies and inspiration you need to match into residency. I'm your host, Shauna K. Lester, the founder of Memorable Essay and the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator, a program that helps you create a memorable residency application to match. So if you're looking for proven strategies to match, and the inspiration to create a medical career you absolutely love, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Dr. Samantha Patterson is concerned about the care of the older adult and how it is impacting all of us. Born in Jamaica, Dr. Patterson completed a Bachelor of Science at Fordham University, pursued her medical degree at the University of the West Indies, Mona, and gained an MPH from Nova Southeastern University in Florida before pursuing residency training in internal medicine. After residency, she completed fellowship training in geriatric medicine at Harvard. In this episode, we talk about just a few of the chapters of Dr. Patterson's rich path. We cover what led her to the match, how an unexpected friendship supported her throughout residency, the one piece of advice that put Harvard on her radar for fellowship, why she loves geriatrics, and her blueprint for your match success. Let's dive in. So welcome to Dr. Samantha Patterson. She's joining us today on the IMG Residency Match podcast. I'm so confident that we're going to have the kind of conversation that will be so helpful to you listening, hoping to follow in Dr. Patterson's footsteps. I already know you're going to be inspired, so let's welcome her. Welcome, Dr. Patterson.
Thank you. Thank you, Shauna. It's fun to be here finally. I finally made it on a podcast.
Thank you. Yes, you're so welcome. So I wanted to start with little Samantha. Where is she growing up? What does she care about? What is life like?
Well, I grew up in St. Andrew. Well, I started off in Kingston and St. Andrew, and life was simple and fun. My father did all the working. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. And so, obviously closer to my mom. And then we kind of moved from one area where I was closer to family. So like all my cousins and everybody. And then we kind of moved up into St. Andrew and, we're kind of building our own life. But it was still fun. I was closer to university at that time. Things that I was caring about at that time, I don't know, life was pretty carefree.
Life before bills.
Yeah, life was carefree. I mean, so I went to Immaculate, of course, best high school ever. And then I guess I kind of already knew what I wanted to do. So from a young age, I'd say from about 4 or 5, I was like, oh, I want to be like my pediatrician. So my life was kind of just geared towards that. And I was just caring more about experiences, I think, ever since I was young. So I was one of those little kids who always wanted to go somewhere and go to Hope Zoo and just experience whatever was going on, if the fair or go down to Coney Park. And I just was always wanted to do something. I guess as a teenager, again, my life was just kind of geared towards getting out of Jamaica, honestly, because that's what I wanted to do, I wanted to experience somewhere else. I wanted to have life outside of Jamaica. I had a lot of family outside of Jamaica as well. So, I'd hear stories about the quote unquote land of opportunity. I'm like, I want to get some experience in that. And so, yeah, I pretty much just kind of had my head down, and just did what I needed to do. That was what I was caring about. I'd say in high school, it was just kind of focusing on trying to get good grades and making sure that I was involved in what I needed to, extracurricular stuff. My parents were always pretty supportive. I wasn't like an athlete. I never want to run. I never want to swim, none of that stuff. But I did play the steel band, which was so fun. And yeah, just I think I am one of those people who always want to experience a little of everything. So I wasn't trying to be in just like one area. So whenever a new activity, we used to have activities on what, a Tuesday, I think it was. And whenever a new activity came up, I'd be like, oh, let me try this thing out. Like I did calligraphy and I just always wanted to experience different things. So yeah.
All right, so that kicks it at St. Andrew in Jamaica and experiencing all of the things. I've never actually heard the story of your pediatrician. So could you tell me about this pediatrician who had you knowing at age 4 that you wanted to do medicine?
Oh yeah. So it was pneumonia. It was pneumonia. So I've always had like the eczema, the atopy, all of that. So I was always sneezing all over the place. And I ended up with pneumonia as around probably 3 or so. And I remember you don't remember the details, but I just remember like feeling better. And my mother, she used to tell me this, like how my pediatrician like yelled at her for
Okay.
getting sick. And I was like, you just remember a comforting feeling at around the age of 4. It was just like she was just comforting. And I guess I just remember being better. And I was always fixated. And it was Dr. Palomina Lou, big up to her. And just that comforting feeling that she gave me at that young age, I just never forgot it. And I'm like, hey, I want to do this. So of course I wanted to be a pediatrician. Didn't
Okay.
happen, but that's kind of what I started. Yep.
So along the way, though, so as you get to high school and you start learning about other things, though, do you ever want to be anything else? Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a researcher? Nothing else caught your attention?
I never wanted to be anything else. And I know like most people are like, really? And I'm like, I couldn't envision myself being anything else. I was just stuck right there. I mean, somebody forced me one time to be like, but what if you couldn't be a doctor? Like, what would you do? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'd be a teacher or something, but then like I'm not the best. My friends always tell me, really, you gonna be a teacher, you're not that patient. And I'm like, I'm patient with my patients. So it's just
Okay.
you guys are not patient with it. So yeah, I think I was just pretty one-tracked and focused. I really didn't imagine myself doing anything else.
And so pediatrics, tell me a little bit about why you didn't end up in pediatrics. What's that story?
I had my pediatrics rotation and it was tough. It was just crying babies, nervous, anxious, angry parents, and I just didn't feel happy in the space. Trying to figure out what's really happening to our child is already difficult in and of itself because clearly they generally can't tell you exactly where the pain is or point to something or something like that. And so I felt like, wow, this is going to be really difficult. And not only that, like in general, you tend to, especially for the younger ones, you tend to kind of just treat everything. I remember all the babies coming in and it was just kind of like, all right, we're going to do a pan culture because they have fever, you don't know what's going on. We're having to do these lumbar punctures on these babies that I just thought it was just too much. I said I didn't feel comfortable in the space of just kind of throwing stuff at them, throwing the kitchen sink at them and just hoping that something stick. It never felt right to me. It never felt like my calling in the time when I was doing the rotation. Prior to that, I'm like, yeah, of course. But just being in the space and realizing how difficult it was to kind of figure out what was going on. Yeah, I decided that, yeah, maybe this is not it for me.
So what eventually felt like a calling and how did you know?
I would say it wasn't during medical school. I think when I started actually working, and more so when I was working down in pharmacy. I did internship through the KPH, Bustamante, Jubilee, that circuit. It was rough. Like internal medicine there was rough, like 40 admissions a night kind of vibe. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. But I also started to see where you could get patients in and out. Like there was something that you could fix and they may not be perfect, but you could get them to the point where, all right, they no longer need to be in the hospital. And I kind of like that. And then when I went to Falmouth after internship and like SHO and stuff, I initially thought I was going to do surgery because I liked, I liked the vibe. Again, that whole can I fix something and send them along their way? And surgery kind of got interesting to me at that time. And then again, I realized after, because fortunately for me, because it was a type C hospital, I was able to be involved in all those areas, even though I would not have been specialized in the area. So I got to do like minor surgeries, a hernia here or there, appendectomy here, obviously with the surgeon there. And slowly I realized that it wasn't as personal as I needed it to be. I kind of really liked that actual touch of talking to the patients and, getting to know them a little bit and not just like, okay, hi, we're going to fix this and you're going to be on your way. So I started to see where internal medicine was more of a fit for me. So I could develop some rapport with the patient. I could still fix something, still get them back on their way. So for me, it was back to them farm because we were in Trelawney. And so it just kind of started to make sense for me in that moment. And that was kind of where I also realized that geriatrics is probably going to be it because I just connected more with the older adults from that time, and we would chat about their lives, and it was very fulfilling. So I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back when I did get into geriatrics, I'm like, you know what? And when I obviously had to start like writing personal statements and having to think about it, I realized that was probably when that all started.
So you scooped us in terms of telling us that you do geriatrics now. Great. But in terms of what you've seen in the different countries and states that you worked in when it comes to the elderly, when it comes to geriatrics, what do you think is universal among all of those older people who you're meeting with and bonding with?
Among the older people, I would say, from what I've seen, it's gratitude. I feel like the older adults have a sense of gratitude that for me, I wasn't getting in younger patients. And not only gratitude, but a level of honesty that I really appreciated. So everywhere that I've been to and I've had to deal with someone, particularly, let's say over 75, they were always just telling me, all right, listen, I'm not going to do that. Like, don't even try because I'm not going to do that. So I knew from the jump, okay, like how I need to approach this person because they're pretty honest and open. They've been through so much in their life that they're at the point where they're not going to do certain things. And I'm very happy for that. So yeah, I think that's pretty universal.
I used to hate the comparison that people would make between babies and adults, especially older people. And they'd say, oh, once a man, twice a child. We say that in Jamaica, or make all of these comparisons. And for many reasons, I hated it. But I think now I'm a little bit more open to it. I'm not as offended. But one of the things is definitely the honesty in terms of in speech, just thinking, saying exactly what you're thinking. You get that from toddlers and you definitely get that from your older people. So I think
Yeah, you definitely do.
So you're working now, you're in Trelawney, you said dealing with a lot of farmers. Is that when you started thinking about the match, or do thoughts of the match come along further down?
I thought about the match prior to that. So prior to starting, a few of my friends were entering the match basically right out of medical school. And so I started hearing about it, and they're like, oh, this is something we should do if we want to migrate. And I'm like, yeah, for real. Because at that time, like my mom would have already gone to live in Florida full time. My father was kind of back and forth. And so I'm like, yeah, I probably should look into doing the match and being able to practice there because she's probably going to be there. And I want to always be my mom, whatever like this. So that was when I kind of started thinking about it. And it didn't manifest until later, but yeah, my thoughts would have started not too long after completing medical school, like probably while in internship. That was when I would have started thinking about it.
And what was driving you toward doing it outside of your mom already, being there? Was there anything else that was pushing you, or it was mainly looking to be together again with your family?
I'd say at the beginning, it was, so when I was just thinking about it, not like pursuing anything, it was really just kind of, okay, you'll probably make better money. And in Jamaica, seeing the doctors that would have gone before me, there was kind of I guess, a hustle mentality that was going on because you had to be working a few jobs to be able to live comfortably. And at that time, I never have the hustle mentality. So I was like, I was thinking, okay, I just want to be able to work one job and be comfortable. And so I felt like at the time that was what the US would have afforded, like just being able to. And then, people are so subspecialized here that it was like, okay, you'll have one job, you'll know one thing really well, and you should be fine. You should be set. So
And so as you make this transition and you're going through your residency program, is there anything that is surprising you or it was pretty smooth sailing? Anything that was a surprise to you that you feel like people who match should be aware of, or it might be something that needs some work for them to successfully transition?
I would say, and I actually just had this conversation with a resident from Brazil, that back home, I don't know how it is now, but when I was certainly training, there was a significant paternalistic approach to medicine. And again, for me, who was practicing in the country, it was always like, Doc, anything you say, I will do. Coming to the US, it wasn't even like anything near that. There were a lot of questions being thrown at you. It was a lot of, you had to be offering, you had to be offering a lot of different options to your patients. You had to understand how to explain pros and cons a lot better than I would have at home. And I think that that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me, that yeah, back home, pros and cons, but you don't necessarily get into like that conversation as deep as you do when you come over here. Again, you're just the expectation of you being able to explain something on different levels because you're meeting patients who are on a lot of different levels with their education and their health literacy, and just being able to explain things to them a lot more, things about like informed consent. Like, yeah, back home you take consent, but it's like, listen, we're going to do this. And most of the time they're like, again, yes, this is going to benefit me. I'm all set. Like they want to sign it before you even explain it to them. But here it's like, you have to take your time and you have to make sure people understand. And I think initially it was a little bit daunting because I'm like, oh my gosh, suppose I don't say this right, or suppose I can't explain it. Suppose I can't answer the questions that they're asking. But you learn and you make sure that you are prepared to answer the questions that they're probably going to ask. And yeah, that was one of the things I think that really stood out to me. And I think when we're transitioning, we should probably try to, especially if it's somebody coming particularly from a Jamaica or somewhere similar where the health system is like that. Again, that young resident and I were talking about code status and, people coming into the hospital who had a cardiac arrest and they're basically dead. And she said, like back home in Sao Paulo, it would just be a situation like, oh yeah, we're not resuscitating this 94-year-old who just came in and had a cardiac, like we're not doing that. But here they come in and it's like you have to do something. It's night and day almost. But just those are the things I think would be important to recognize, that here people tend to want to be a lot more involved. And so you have to be open to also being a lot more open and explaining and being honest and just saying, okay, well, I don't know, I think this is the best, but a lot more dialogue happens here is what I find in the system, in the healthcare system. And sometimes I used to feel like offended, like, wait a second, she's asking me that, is me go medical school, women understand. But yeah, it's healthy. It's for the most part. Obviously, some people can't be rude about it, but for the most part, it's pretty healthy because it keeps you on your toes,
100 questions for the doctor. I tend to be that way whenever I'm going to the doctor, especially when it's for my mom. So I'm not sure about me. As my geriatrician, I'm like, well, here are all my concerns and everything I have a question about.
Yeah.
Right. And we know from social media that friendship seems to have been an important part of your residency journey because you share along with a colleague the journey that you're on. How important was that for you in residency, and what role did it serve in helping you to get through your residency program? Just having a friend or having good support?
Oh, it was everything. It was absolutely everything. I can share that my friend that I was closest with in residency, we met at the interview. And it's funny because she's also Caribbean. And at the end of the interview, everyone, we were hugging and saying, all right, link you, whatever. And everyone thought that we knew each other like years. And we're like, yeah, no, we just met. But it's a Caribbean thing and it's a vibe, and that's just how we are. And I mean, we shared so much during residency. And I think because we had similar background from that Caribbean experience, even though we weren't from the same island, it was very helpful to just be able to know that there was somebody else there who kind of understood how you were feeling. And again, our program wasn't all, I would say maybe it was only a few of us that were IMGs. Some of them were US residents who would have just gone for training and came back. So us having that connection was very important. We shared lots of personal, because residency was just rough. It was a lot going on personally. And so we got the chance to share with each other throughout that time. It was invaluable, really, to be able to have that person that I could turn to, that I could talk patois with, and she could understand me. And there was nobody there looking at me like, I don't understand what you're saying, or, so it was good. It was a safe haven. I think it was very, very important. And I don't know that I would ever have wanted to have done it any other way. And it's bouncing things off each other. Somebody to be a sounding board to be like, is me crazy? Or like, tell me how you feel about this. It was fantastic. I wish that everybody would have that experience. I'm sure everybody, it's not possible, but that support is really, really important in residency. I mean, sometimes I'm just sitting on a ball and like she had to be like, okay, just go ahead and cry. It will be fine. But somebody else probably wouldn't have understood why I was crying, because maybe it had nothing to do with work. So it was great. It was great. Trust me, I wouldn't change it for the world. Support is always key. I think in anything, but particularly in residency where it really gets tough, it is key.
And so after residency, what were you able to accomplish and how was that experience? So sorry to fill us in because you left us at high school and we know we're going to do
All
medicine.
over.
We're doing medicine, then we're in residency, we're checking the boxes. What's the next step after residency and how have things been since? So tell us, what is Dr. Samantha Patterson doing now and how is that?
Residency kind of, I guess, made me realize, I mean, well, we did residency basically during COVID, right? So a lot of the patient population that we had that were being admitted to the hospital were older adults, unfortunately. And so I guess it just kind of confirmed for me, even though it was such a sad and a rough time, that is what I wanted to do, that geriatrics was what I wanted to do. And so, coming towards the end, I'm like, okay, it's time to start reaching out and figuring out how to get into geriatrics fellowship. Luckily for me, one of our faculty members was a geriatrician, and there was a resident from the program who a few years prior would have gone into geriatrics fellowship as well. Not necessarily because that's what he wanted, but I believe he was like from Canada, and so he wanted to do an extra year prior to going back to Canada, but it just kind of worked out. She put myself and my friend in contact with this former resident, and he went to the Harvard program. And he's like, listen, if you're gonna, he was acting like our mentor, and he said his words were, if you are going to do geriatrics, do not do it anywhere but Harvard. So we're like, okay. It was like he said, don't do it anywhere but Harvard. And I'm thinking, Harvard? How am I gonna get into Harvard? Like, really? It was great because then the networking started, and he introduced me to the program director, had a conversation with the program director, worked it out so that I would do an away elective over there, well, here in Massachusetts. And it just kind of fell into place at that time when I did the observership. Everything just I felt like I met my people. It just felt like home. And I'm like, okay, I can see myself here. And again, like I didn't think like it was even possible, but I'm like, okay, maybe showing who I am and, just networking with the people there while I was in the observership, telling everybody, oh my gosh, I would love to be here. And just genuinely actually wanting to be here was, I think, a great part of it. And then did the whole fellowship match, applied to a few other really good programs, and just hoped and prayed. Hoped and prayed, and then it happened. So I did the geriatrics fellowship through the Harvard multi-campus fellowship program. Did that. That was a year. Also, I think it was appropriate for me because I did not I didn't think I could manage anything for more than a year at that point. Mentally, I was like, okay, I'm kind of ready to start working as well. And so it was perfect. It was a year I had the best experience. And then since then, now I'm working as a geriatrician with a group here in Northern Massachusetts.
A quick pause to thank our sponsor, the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. The IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator helps international medical graduates like you create a memorable application to match. Learn more at bit.ly/IMG match. Now back to the conversation.
When you're working with older people or as a geriatrician, I think so sometimes I'll talk with people and their next step after residency has to be something intense. They want to make sure that it's something, that keeps them on their toes. Some people want something that, kind of fits in more with their life and allows them to have a more paced existence. What's the pace of geriatrics and does it fit into your life? And is there anything at all that is exciting about it?
So it's different depending on where you are and where you're practicing geriatrics. So while in residency, I did geriatrics consults like in the hospital, and that was very fast paced, very demanding. There was always a geriatrics consult because all the older adults had delirium. And so you were always being called. So that was one thing. There were other environments where you kind of did like a primary care setup. For me, and what fit mostly into my lifestyle is where I am now, where I work in the nursing homes. And so I get a little bit of a mix because I see patients who come in like just after hospitalization, so in the subacute rehab space. And then I also see people in the long-term care space. So both of them are exciting for me because when patients come onto the hospital, they're still pretty acute because a lot of times it's just like they try to fix just enough to be able to send you out the door. And so we're still doing sometimes pretty acute medicine in the subacute rehab section. And then on the long-term care floors, it's exciting for me because I get to experience the life of all of these people where they are now. A lot of them may have cognitive impairment or they may have, full-blown advanced dementia. But even just having a non-coherent or incoherent conversation with them for me is very exciting because I feel like just chatting with them, just getting them out of their daily, just hanging out in the chair routine is all. It just brings them like a smile to their face, and that's exciting for me. So I feel like I get the best of the worlds that I like. So I get a little bit of, okay, not really a hospital, but I have to be acutely managing this pneumonia that they're developing or they had and now it's worse or whatever. And then I get like the more chilled, relaxed long-term care space. And how it fits into my lifestyle is that I don't have like a rigorous set schedule as where I would be in a hospital where I don't have to be on call and I don't have to have that pager. And I can more so have a flexible day because obviously they're in this facility for the most part. It's not like they're trying to like get them out immediately. So my day can be more flexible. I don't have to go to work at 8 o'clock and leave at 5. It works out for me that way.
Yeah, and I like hearing everything that you're saying now. It's really wonderful for me to hear this. I know that in your own path, you are a more mature applicant to the match with some delays. And so I wanted to ask you if you have any encouragement or advice for individuals who might not have, gone to medical school at 18 and to residency at 21, and, there might be some delay and they're thinking that, hey, this is not working out. Let me just, scrap the plan. What would be your advice for individuals like that who have had some delay, but they feel within their heart that they really should be going into medicine?
Medicine or into the match? Medicine in general?
Medicine in general, and definitely specifically into the match, because I think a lot of people, when they talk, it's like, oh, I want to buy a house. Oh, I want to have kids. And the idea to them of still going after this process that's going to require you to uproot to where you are, maybe sell a house that you bought, sell a car that you already bought. They're looking at something that might not be the ideal, but they can work with it, versus in their mind, oh, I'm going to start all over again and I'm just going to be so many years, quote unquote, behind.
I would say I've known so many people now who have started over and it's 100% fine. My advice would be to actually do some soul searching. Sit by yourself, envision, write things down, do the whole pros and cons list, and see on paper, okay, is this something I want to do? Only yourself can know that, right? And I feel like if when you look at this paper or this note in your phone, or when you sit in your corner and that's what you keep envisioning for yourself, go ahead and do it. It does not matter where you are on your journey. Trust me, if you're planning to do it, there's probably somebody else out there who is doing it, and you're most likely not alone, regardless of where you are, what age you are. There are so many people whom I know personally who did a whole residency back home and moved to the US and did a new one. And so it's never about where you are or what age you are or whatever. It's just about, do you really want it? And how badly do you really want it? I think that's key. That's one thing I would say for those who are thinking about starting medical school later on in life. And I would say for the match process, I think I did scribble down a couple of things. I would say understand the process. So for me, when I did the match, it was technically 2 times that I did the match, because the first time I had no idea what was going on. I just was like scrolling through and I said, oh, this match thing. I never researched anything. I tried to get some help from a couple of friends, but I never got as much help as I needed, or guidance, I guess, as I needed. So I would say try to understand the process. Reach out to the resources that you know, people who have been through it, people like Shauna who know what's going on. Don't try to go in there blind. So definitely understand the process, understand the ins and outs of the process, and use your network. Use your network, expand your network as much as you can, and then use that network, because there are so many of us out there as international medical graduates all over the place. I remember a couple of people have reached out to me on LinkedIn and that kind of thing. And so, like, use your network. People are there and people out there are willing to help. So I'd say if you're planning to go through the match process, definitely that's something you want to do. There's probably somebody who knows somebody who can, maybe they can't even get you an interview, but they can maybe explain to you, like, okay, this is what they're looking for. And even just that will be helpful. And then my last thing was always ask. Always ask for what it is that you want. The worst thing somebody can tell you is no, and no not kill nobody. So always ask, and not just in this space, but in any space. I remember for me, one of the observerships that I did was a friend of mine's father had an office in New York, regular internal medicine office, like nothing fancy. And we were just chatting. I think we were having a drink or something. And I was just like, your father don't want me to come do an observership with him. And he was like, what is even that? And I said, you know what is true? Let me talk to your father. Send me a link to get through to your father. And I spoke with him and he was like, honestly, like, I've never done this before, but if you can figure it out, then let's do it. And like, I got some paperwork, and that's how I did one of my observerships. I just asked. So I would say ask for what it is that you want, put it out there in the universe, because a lot of times things that we think may not happen or cannot happen, they actually can. It's just that we never ask.
I like that. Like, and you probably knew that I would love that, right? I feel like that's so important. And it's one of those things outside of a lot of times, yes, for IMGs, you need to know medicine, you need to know what you're doing clinically. You need to understand the match process. But so much of the work I found over the years is like mental toughness almost, just like mindset, like knowing how to ask, knowing how to take a no, but not take it personally, and to just keep moving on until you get that yes. I remember one year there, I worked with a bunch of people, and there was one person who wasn't successful, and I was shocked. His friends were shocked. We were just all shocked because, superstar all around. So your mouth kind of falls to the ground. And in talking with him afterwards, like, obviously he figured out what the problem was, but I expected there to be like some period of mourning. And there's no wrong or right way to react to something like that. But I was expecting some period of mourning, and he was just like, yes, I'm going to take a week. And he took like a week and he came back. He was on it. And of course, he matched the next time. But he figured out what was wrong, and he figured out who and what he needed to ask and what he needed to correct, and he was just back at it, in math. So those are definitely some of the skills you need, and learning how to just ask.
Absolutely.
So I have a personal bone. I have a personal kind of like dog in the game before my final question. Sometimes, and I think this is actually relevant, so I'm asking it from a very pure space. I think as many of us get older and we realize that we are helping our parents more through small things and, like big things. Sometimes I will find that I interact with the healthcare system like I'm interacting with an internist, or, if it's somebody who's subspecialized, you're interacting with, I don't know, a cardiologist or a pulmonologist, for your mom or something. And you're like, wow, I wonder if this person likes old people or if they have any training with old people. Because sometimes that patience that you mentioned earlier at the top of our conversation, there's like a lack of patience, or even sometimes like a fear when there is that cognitive impairment, just total confusion, of when it comes to the actual patient, or even seemingly being afraid of the patient. What do you think can be done or should be done by geriatricians? I don't know, maybe it's not your job to help, I think, all doctors have some sort of, clearly not your pediatrician, but help all doctors who work with adults have some sort of tolerance or acceptance or just more ease and comfort dealing with older patients. Do you think there's anything that geriatricians can do for that? And is that needed work, or no one should ask you to do more than what you do?
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think I've even found that as well in my own personal experience. And so I would say it probably starts in residency. Again, my residency was peculiar because it was the time of COVID. And so I was just plunged into seeing a lot of older adults anyway. But I think that from hearing from other people, it seems like there's not a lot of experience that is happening. On the other side of it, when I see like the residents come to rotate with us, they come for like a few days or they come for maximum a week, but then like a couple of days they're like, oh wait, I'm sick, we can't come. And so they think of it more as like a vacation week, you know? And so I think a part of it is probably going to start in education during residency. I think geriatricians probably need to get more involved in that piece in medical education, in being faculty members and on these internal medicine programs. I do feel like there are some, and I think there are steps towards getting people more involved because I know some places there has to be a geriatrician on the faculty now. And so I think that that will continue to expand. Even when I was looking for my current job or my permanent job, there are a lot of jobs out there now that want you to be in the academic space. So I think as geriatricians, we have to accept those posts and try our best to make sure that the experience that is had in residency is one that will encourage the doctors to understand how to manage people in the future, because obviously everybody's going to go down different paths. And so I think that's where we're all together. That's where the base is. And the experience during that time is probably what's going to be most important. So that's where I think we can make it better, just right there as you come in. And I think the requirement was like very minimal. So I know like the American Geriatric Society also, is trying to get into that space of the education space as well, to get us more involved, to get the residents to understand how important it is. Because I mean, the population is aging, right? And so everybody going to have to deal with older adults at some point, except obviously the pediatrician, like you said. And so it's crucial. So yeah, I think that's what will be helpful. We need to just get more into the education space. And that was a lot of what we were taught in fellowship, and a lot of what they tried to push and instill in us in fellowship is that we have to now be the leaders. We have to go out there and infuse ourselves into all of the systems and try to educate those who not even necessarily want to be in our field, but in every other field of internal medicine is going to be important.
Thank you. And obviously, as a person, just so grateful for, the work that you do, because it is important. So as you think about your career, you're stepping into your full-time role now, and you've obviously been making a lot of impact over the years on different people. What do you want the legacy of your work to be? What do you want people to remember Dr. Patterson for? I remember one of the things that we spoke about when we met is you having been in a former job and years later, somebody seeing you and thanking you for how you treated her father, that her father remembered that you really made such a huge difference in his life. And she, again, she remembered you all of these years later. And so I'm wondering, going forward, now that you subspecialized and you're out here, is the legacy still to have people remember how you treated them with dignity, remember how you got them a solution, or do you have like a new legacy now that's the target?
I don't know who said it. Of course, I've never known who says it, but there was a saying out there that says people may not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I try to live by that, and I try to practice by that. And it's not just about the patients, it's for us. I mean, similar again to like pediatrics, it's about the family, and it's about the coordination. It's about, making sure that not only the patient, but the family feels that you are invested in their care and that you want the best for them, even if the best is not treating them with antibiotics and trying to make them quote unquote better, So I think that is a part of the legacy that I want to leave, is making sure that people remember that, hey, this doctor didn't make me feel better. I was feeling so poorly about whatever was going on with my father, mother, whoever, but this person made me feel like they actually cared about what's going on and about me and about the patient. And then I guess kind of a new, I don't know if it's going to be a legacy, but I want to get more involved in policy making, just to, yeah, I'm currently wasting my MPH. And so I do want to get into that space to see how to have geriatrics more understood from a policy level, and the care of the older adult and how it's impacting all of us. And even at home as well, back home in Jamaica, that's something that is on the very long to-do list that I have, but I think it's important. That's the next step to take it, to have geriatrics more on a broader scale, and for people to just understand how important it is, get working on those policies so that our older adults are protected.
I didn't even know that, or I actually didn't even remember about the MPH part, but that makes a lot of sense. And I guess if you could strike a magic wand, what policy would you put in place tomorrow?
I would say currently, just from where I'm at, the ratio, which is going to be difficult, obviously, because the workforce situation is rough. But the ratio of like caregivers to patients, particularly when it comes to our cognitively impaired or older adults, I think that's something that I would probably change to make sure that the ratio is more conducive to them living well, being safe, being happy, and being better cared for.
Just for clarity, do you mean caregiver to patient in a clinical setting or is it a home setting?
In where I'm, so like I said, I work in a nursing home space, and so in spaces like that, yeah, I think it's right now. I think the ratio is not, we get a lot of falls, and we get a lot of people who just need that extra help. And unfortunately, the way how the ratio is set up is like you might have one nurse or like two aides, and I think based on like the standards that are out there now, they are accepted, but it's not enough. And trying to maybe get more people into the workforce, I think would also be something that I would want to work on from a policy standpoint. So I don't know how, but
who needs to know the how? We just have to start.
you just have to have the vision. You just have to have the vision, and then you get there somehow, some way.
Oh, we do it. So absolutely. I agree with you again. I'm having experienced so much of that. And I think just the proper care of the caregivers, like a good caregiver is always worth their weight in salt. And so I do believe that they just should be well compensated, well taken care of for it to be a more attractive.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Patterson, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wisdom about your journey from wanting to be in the match and really getting to understand the process, being successful, getting to residency, leaning on your friend, making use of resources. And Dr. Patterson was so humble, but when she matched into residency, there was so much word through the grapevine. Oh my God, Sam, a very long resident. So she obviously, made the most of residency and made an impact. I think a lot of people just heard a lot about how well you were doing in residency and the impact that you were making. And of course, then going on very deservedly so to your fellowship training. So we're so proud of you and thank you so much. And thank you for your time coming by to help other IMDs who are coming up now to learn how they can perhaps follow in your footsteps while they, walk their own path, but learn all that there is to learn from you. So thank you so much for your
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to leave by saying, always pull somebody up behind you. Always. Take care. Have a good day.
Hey friend, thank you for listening to the IMG Residency Match podcast. If you're ready to create a memorable application that gives you the best possible odds of matching into residency, connect with me at bit.ly/IMG match. That's all lowercase. And you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Memorable Essay, or handle is Memorable Essay. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, leave a review, and share it with another IMG who's on their match journey. Your support helps more ambitious IMGs to find our show. Until next time, keep focused and be memorable.